reach compromise, why not fix it? If you disagree with certain things, but you like the provisions of it, let's fix it.
Well, I don't disagree at all with you. The proposal that we had, and we've talked about at these meetings before, one of the biggest problems with the President's health care bill is the fact that it was totally partisan vote.
Get over it. Move on.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about a bipartisan solution now.
Two sides of compromise, right?
But that's part of the problem. And what our proposal was, as far as they would have pre-existing conditions, would take off catastrophic losses, would help young people to stay in their parents' policies longer. But it's an entirely different concept as to the way forward. We believe in actual competition in the marketplace. If Iowa only has one company in the exchange, there's no competition. Some company I've never heard of. But no, I think there are some things that we certainly agree on. But I don't know how you get this.
Well, if you got 80 Republicans saying they're going to close the government rather than compromise, I think there's a problem. Well, and I think you should be dissatisfied.
Well, I would like to certainly start over as much as anybody and actually have something that will work. Because anyway, I understand that the position that some of those folks have taken is simply not sustainable. You shut down. I was there in '95 when we had a partial shutdown. Defense was funded, veterans were funded. A lot of the main priorities and that a lot of folks would care about were all funded. It was a partial shutdown. This would shut down everything. You got men and women overseas fighting, and you're not going to pay them or their families, take care of their family at home. You have veterans who would not get veterans benefits, not get their pensions. It's not a sustainable position.
My understanding was they want to fund everything but volunteer.
Which will never happen.
Well,
the Senate will not pick it up.
That's a different way of looking at it. They were going to shut the government down.
And we will have a vote in the House on the financial services appropriation bill to prohibit health and human services from transferring money to the IRS to enforce it. Okay. The Senate will never pick it up. The president's signature issue. He will never sign anything with repeal. And that's maybe I'm not an ideologue or something, but I actually have to govern and try to do the right thing for the right reasons. And I just don't think that is a way to proceed that's going to have a positive outcome for anybody. Knowing the reality of the situation.
Can you tell us who in the government you think could run for president and do a good job?
Not me.
Is there
Why anybody would want that job? I don't know.
Is there anybody that you?
I'm not going to talk politics. It's an official meeting.
Well, I mean, somebody.
I think there's a lot of very qualified, good people out there, but I don't have any particular favorite. I'm very uneasy talking any kind of politics in an official meeting. So, thank you.
But you are a politician.
I'm a representative.
Yes, thank you, Congressman Latham, Max Howard, Polk County. By the way, I just want to remark that you're looking rather well, and I'm glad for that. I can remember sitting in a room in West Des Moines during the latter stages of the campaign. I, quite frankly, was a little worried about you, and you were fighting back on a cold, but you're looking well, and that's good for us in governing, I would hope. Issue, SNAP, my perspective, representing results, which is focused on ending childhood poverty and hunger, which of course is a pipe dream at this point, but you can't get any place without a goal. SNAP, Republican leadership in the House, of course, as you're well aware, is wanting to cut $40 billion. Iowa, according to Gannett USA Today, republished piece on the front page above the fold of the Des Moines Register today, is more highly dependent upon the SNAP program for both seniors like yourself and myself and children than any other state in the country, I think in the top 5. Now, that is a program that's essential for schools. I'm a retired educator. For the health and well-being of the children that become our future wage earners, our future voters, those that we depend upon to help pay into the retirement system, from which we all hopefully benefit. What are you planning to do to preserve SNAP, to work on our behalf, and to approach more, let's say, rationally the cuts that leadership is wanting to take that would have such an adverse impact on a range of people from seniors to babies?
I don't think anyone disagrees that there's probably some reforms that can take place, and a lot of programs that would probably have some savings, but would not be detrimental. What I want to see happen is something finally get done and passed. And whether it's what they're talking about coming to the floor, as you know, the Farm Bill, the original try failed, that had both the farm portion, which is 20% of it, and the nutrition part of it, which is 80%. There are some people who thought that the $20 billion at that point of savings out of $800 billion over 10 years, some people thought it was too much, some people thought it was not enough. And so we lost votes on both sides and did not pass the farm. Okay. We passed the farm portion itself, which could go to the Senate. What I want to see happen is a nutrition title, no matter what it says, get passed so that we can get to conference with the Senate. When it comes back to conference, you'll have a huge bipartisan vote that will pass it to get it done.
Okay.
And there's things. There are 19 states in the U.S. today that pay individuals $1 a month under LIHEAP, if you're familiar with the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, supposedly to help them with their heating bills. And what that does, that $1 qualifies them for food stamps automatically. To raise that from $1 minimum to $20 would save $8 billion. I mean, there's just some of the...
There's some tweaking that can be done.
Oh, no, absolutely, which would provide some savings, which should make some folks happy, and some folks will never make them happy.
Yeah.
But actually have those reforms that would actually be positive and not waste money, and could actually get the bill done. And that's, I'm very hopeful, no matter what the bill comes to the floor, I want to make sure that passes so that we get to conference and get it done. When it comes back to the conference with the Senate, it will be, maybe have some of the smaller reforms in it, and then you'll have a huge bipartisan vote.
Okay,
And pass it.
and as you're aware,
Yes, we're hoping in October.
Yeah, okay,
to get
good.
it done.
SNAP, as you're well aware of all the programs that are under the Farm Bill, has the lowest fraud rate, and so as we're trying to tweak, if we're trying to tweak SNAP, we should be doing at least that much tweaking elsewhere.
Well, I mean, originally the 20% of all the spending of the Farm Bill was farm policy.
Yeah.
We had 20 billion of savings in that part, and 20 billion savings in what is 80% of the farm. So, I mean, the farmers are more than willing to contribute the direct payments, reform the countercyclical payments. All they're asking for is basically a risk management tool so they can go to the bank and say, if I have a disaster, I'll still make business next year. I mean, that's what they're saying. Their farmers' biggest concern today is taxes and regulations. But so I know, I mean, the farmers are willingly giving in proportion an awful lot more than the nutrition type.
Well, I'm not going to go there because I'm rural, but I'm tempted. Wanting to have a pure focus here on the elderly, like ourselves, and young children, because when we neglect their needs, with hunger, with nutrition being one of the most basic, then we have a long-term payment to make for that neglect.
Yeah. This young lady.
I know I've talked to you about this before, and this is small potatoes, and I'm probably the only one in the room that it affects. But over-regulation in the livestock industry is going to kill us. And the reason I say that is because I think the Humane Society of the United States and other animal rights groups have far more power in this administration than they should have. And I found out a while back, and we have a small farm, but I raise horses that I sell across the nation and internationally. And so that is my business. And I'm reading that there is going to be a regulation that comes down that says that I can no longer breed my mares and raise babies without being licensed. And then when I get a license, I'm going to be inspected. And the animal rights people would come to my place, and I'll tell you, our horses live better than we do. They wouldn't like the way I take care of them because I put them in the barn every night. And they think they should just run wild and free. And so these regulations that are coming down, I mean, I know that's very personal to me, but I also know there are a lot of regulations within the livestock industry that are going to kill it. And I'm very concerned about that.
I think that a real case in point of exactly, and I said earlier, the farmers are more concerned about taxes and regulations than they are really about farm bills.
Absolutely.
Because they see that as the biggest threat to their livelihood. Case in point, go to California today. They are driving, there's a member of Congress, Devin Nunes, who was a dairy farmer from Central Valley in California. You know where they do now have a dairy? Northwest Iowa. They have been, because of the regulations and the cost of doing business in California, they sold out there and bought a dairy in Northwest Iowa.
Well, and we are somewhat
But
protected
that is
here.
going to continue to be the case. And
Right.
California is kind of the start of this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it will cost, but no, and it's again the frustration like I talked about earlier, in that we're not able to do our annual appropriation bills, which would put limitations on some of these rule writings that are coming through. Right now, they've expanded the definitions and authority under the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, way beyond what was clearly intended in Congress when those bills were passed.
Right.
Who is they?
The bureaucrats, the people, the regulators.
How do we get rid of them?
Yes. Our power is the power of the purse and putting funding limitations on their activities is not good. And the trouble is, it's to their advantage and the dysfunctional Congress today, because then their arrogance only grows.
We have any ideas how we can get rid of that?
We need to have a budget agreement where we're actually doing real appropriation bills every year that we can put limitations on.
But the regulators also protect our health because they investigate the meat packing plants and the restaurants. When we have these outbreaks of all these bacteria, it's because they weren't investigated thoroughly enough. So we want to cut off all regulation unless we each want to grow our own beef, pork, and vegetables and fruits at our own house where we can watch it every day.
And avoid spending several try to take the nitrates out of the water.
Right.
I quit drinking regular tap water and have gone to bottled water, which I never wanted to do. But when you have to spend that much money taking nitrates out of the
Did
water.
I say that we shouldn't have regulations? I don't think I said that. To protect the safety and food supply, all of those things. I'm saying that we are going to the point where these new regulations all the time are going to be extraordinarily expensive. And I will guarantee you that you're going to put every small operator out of business in agriculture. Anyone who doesn't believe that there's a synergy and a work togetherness between big business, I don't care whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in banking, wherever, in big government, doesn't understand. The purpose is to limit competition and eliminate the little guy. And that's exactly what they're doing. You cannot afford, if you're a small livestock producer, well, don't, I mean, I'm serious.
I think there's a
You know,
lot.
talk to the small farmers out
Oh, I
there
agree. We
that
need
have to
help.
have a huge investment. They cannot justify with the number of livestock they have to do it. So what do they go out of business?
I think that there's a
And
lot
then
of
you
large
have the big
livestock.
corporate people take over, and they're the ones producing all the meat and gonna get into all the crops and everything else before it's over with. If in fact we don't make it possible for a small person to exist.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. I think it's a lot of the large corporate farmers that are controlling some of the issues.
No, and
No, but look
they
at how
love-
It's no accident that Branstad and the Farm Bureau are met with the EPA. I mean, they're
They-
big players in the field right now.
But the farmers have done so much to cut back on the amount of fertilizers and chemicals that are put on this ground. They're doing more than anybody with the buffer strips and all of that. What about when somebody puts Roundup on their yard and it goes into the water, into the system? People say, well, if a little works, then I'm going to put more on. Nobody's saying anything about that. They always bash the farmers for saying that we're responsible for the nitrates in the water. How much of the nitrates in the water are natural? A lot.
Larry came in today and told us about Walmart. Tell me what you discovered when you were looking to, and you came to funerary. Funerals?
Different subject, I guess.
No, but he discovered that Walmart is in the funeral business. You can buy caskets online. Is that what you see? Yeah.
Costco.
Through Walmart. I so that would make the smaller funeral. They can't go to Walmart.
Question, I know you stated about your concern about the budget and the debt ceiling, and I understand you don't want to shut the government down, I appreciate that concern. But we've been hearing this for like the last 2 or 3 years where we don't dare shut the government down because we're afraid what the press and the president and his side will, paint the picture that the Republicans are mean and they want to kill everybody and, don't starve everybody out. But we keep going on with the existing budget and nothing seems to change. At what point, I guess the question specifically would be to you, what do you see or what do you recommend with your colleagues who want to have a solution? What is the leverage you have on this, when we come up on this eve with the debt ceiling again? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to step out there and say, guys, we got to do this or otherwise we're not going to go forward? Because the other side continues to want to spend money like there's no limit. And there is a limit. At some point, we will go broke. When we do that, you folks here don't want to be far more concerned about where food and milk and hair will come from because we won't have any money to support. So what will you be encouraging your colleagues to do?
I don't think the year-end fiscal year is a sustainable position. I think just because you're going to shut everything down, and I personally, morally, cannot, in good conscience,
I understand.
not pay our people who are fighting over in Afghanistan.
I understand.
Okay, where I think there's a great opportunity, where there's tremendous pressure on both sides to come to agreements on the debt ceiling because of the sequester. Okay, because a lot of the defense hawks hate to cut half of which are defense cuts. They hate that, understanding it's not sustainable. The other half are the domestic social programs that we side would be very much supportive of, and they hate the cuts to that. And then the president absolutely, you notice his idea, and he assisted on the sequester and Electric Control Act. He hates the sequester. That is the opportunity to actually get a large agreement, which is going to have to be, obviously going to have to be bipartisan. You've got a Democrat president, you've got a Democrat Senate, Republican House. To get a large agreement that we can actually get a handle on spending long term, maybe address some of the mandatory programs, but that's where the pressure is.
So
That's the opportunity.
I'm saying, what do you recommend that both sides give up to go into that great bargain?
Well, there's no way that you're going to have there may not be as large cuts, and there will not be the new taxes. But you're going to have some type of a large agreement that will. The president's suggestion on Social Security in his budget basically to have a small adjustment on the consumer price index and Social Security going forward. That, and there's a lot of suggestions as to how to reform those programs, but we could do some really small, relatively small things today that have an enormous impact. If you look at actuarial tables going out, 10 years, like this CPI thing is about $300 billion over 10 years. The second 10 years, it's about $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion in savings. It compounds itself over time, and that's where I see us.
We need to wrap up.
I'm hopeful that that's where it ends up.
Thank you.
Has anyone not asked a question or yes, sir?
On the way over here, I heard
Didn't you have one earlier?
No, sir.
Come on now.
On the way over here, I heard a report on the radio about a proposed cut in Medicare payments to rural hospitals. What's going on there?
Well, the CMS, which is the governing body at Health and Human Services, is proposing an adjustment to the critical access hospitals, which is going to affect probably 80-some of Iowa small town hospitals and be very devastating as far as access for them for quality health care. We're going to do everything we can to fight it. It's an administrative thing that they're trying to do. They apparently think they have authorization, the ability to do it, but I think you're going to have huge resistance in Congress for that. It's in the House. You got to remember, the House is a very urban body based on population. So we don't have the rural representatives don't have as much influence there. In the Senate, everybody has rural areas. So I think we're going to see certainly all of us representing areas that have rural hospitals are going to fight like crazy to not have that in place. But it's an administrative thing that we're trying to do. Administration.
I just received a letter the other day from the Iowa Heart here telling me that my doctor there will no longer take under the ARP program under Medicare and insurance, and I have to find a new urologist because they are no longer going to participate in this. And this is really hard because there's only one in Ames and maybe two here in Des Moines that they finally found. But this is really, we just can't go to anyone that we, that's what's hard.
And we're seeing it all over the state as far as people no longer taking Medicare patients. Because, a lot of it with the healthcare bill.
So what good is it going to do us if we get all this done?
You're going to see a lot of the specialty, talk to specialty groups, like the heart people or orthopedics, whatever, that are going to have their group is only going to take private payers.
And that's really going to be hard on us that need those here and can't get them then.
One of the ramifications of the healthcare.
This is what Obamacare has done to us.
Are you going to have more discussions like this?
We have one in every county at least once a year. In every county. we also have a representative, Michelle, you come over here, right?
Yep.
We have a representative in each of the 16 counties every month, and hopefully the local media will tell you where that person is going to be. If you have concerns, so that you don't have to drive to our
We
congressional
come
office.
in here 5 days a week.
Okay.
And 2 tables full.
We're going to have, we're going to Greenfield. We'll probably have a caravan going there. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you.